What's up, everybody? Mike Matarazzo here, host of Kitchen Brain Podcast. Before we start this episode, I wanted to say a few things. First, I want to thank everybody who has been supporting Kitchen Brain for the first season and listening and watching the episodes. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate you sharing with your friends and helping me kind of grow the audience through the first season. And thanks for bearing with me through any glitches that may have happened or production issues. This is all really new for me. Season one was great for me to kind of learn the ropes with podcasting and the AV thing, and I'm still learning. So thanks for coming along for the ride. I really do appreciate it, and I hope you'll be back when we bring season two back, which should be late February, early March. I'll keep you posted on social media about all that. I also want to talk about just a few other things before I leave you for the winter. You might be wondering why I'm taking a break and breaking it up into seasons. Part of it is, that learning process for me. It's, you know, I figured out a lot of things in the first season. I want to take the winter to improve the production and my studio and kind of, get a better grasp on some things. Also, I'm still a working full-time executive chef and it's the holiday season. So those of you who are chefs know that it's a busy time. So I'm going to take some time to focus on the holidays at work. I'm going to take some time to focus on the holidays with my family and just keep, like I said, keep improving things here in the studio to try to bring you even an even better experience in season two. So I won't be totally radio silent over the winter. Keep your eye out on social media for off-season shorts. This will be brief, 10-15 minute clips. It'll be myself and the camera and the microphone, and I'm going to talk about a lot of different things, just kind of brief clips, things that pertain to working in kitchens and our industry. I'm going to take some of the comments that have been left on certain controversial social media posts that I've made over the last few months, and I'm going to read those comments and address them and kind of talk about, what people are saying. And then when we get into season two, I already have a few really good guests that I'm excited about lined up to interview for season two. I could use some help though with that. There are a lot of you out there, and you all know people. So if you know somebody that you believe should be on Kitchen Brain because they're an inspirational person, or they have a really incredible story, or they're just doing incredible things at their job. I'm not necessarily looking for celebrities. I'm looking for people who should be celebrities because of what they do or what they've done or what they've gone through, and I want to help bring their story to life for all of you. So if you know anybody who you believe should be on Kitchen Brain, you can email me at michaelm@kitchenbrainx.com, and give me their name, tell me where they are and how to get in touch with them, and why you believe that they should be on Kitchen Brain, and we'll see what we could do there. um, so again, I appreciate everybody tuning in for season one. We've grown. The show has grown a bit for sure since I first started. It's slow going, which is fine and to be expected. Another favor I could ask everybody who's listening or watching, if you could please share, if you like the show, try to share it with as many people as you can. Help me spread the word. The more listeners that I get, the more downloads I get, the more views I get, the more YouTube subscribers I get. Um, the bigger that this can become, the more potential there are for sponsorships. Right now, sponsorships are just kind of out of the question with the rate of downloads, but I'm very optimistic, and I feel like we're going to get there. But I could use your help. So anything that you can do to help me promote the show, just by telling your friends, subscribing if you haven't already subscribed, you can hit the little subscribe button down in the bottom right of this screen. There's like a little tiny red line in the video. click that, subscribe, share it with your friends, and that would be much, much appreciated. I also want to talk about another venture that some of you know about and have seen me post about, and you'll start to see more posts now that season one is over. Be Better Culinary Perspectives, and that's a company that I started earlier in the year. And my goal with this is to provide food service operations, focusing in the back of the house with guidance, advice, efficiency, items that they can focus on, team building, leadership skills. This isn't a cooking thing. This isn't about food, and this isn't necessarily about me coming in and saying this is how you should run your business. This is more of a partnership. It's a coaching versus a consulting. I know a lot of people out there think that, oh, everybody says coaching because they think it sounds better than consulting, but it's all the same. This is not the same. I'm actually another thing that I'm starting this winter, just to share. I'm embarking on a small educational journey to become a certified life coach through the International Coach Federation, and that will add more knowledge to this business as well. Where coaching is not telling you how to do things. It's not telling you, this is what you need to do to get better. It's not diagnosing you with anything. It's not treating you for anything. Coaching is helping people think through the way that they're doing things, and come up and find their best selves, and how to be their best selves. And that's really what it's all about. I have had numerous people over the last few months contact me. Some of them I know, some of them I don't, and they're asking, can you help me deal with some stress and anxiety, whether it's in their life or at work or a combination of both? How do I balance my life? How do I have a better life quality for myself at work and at home, and all that kind of stuff? And there are ways to do it. And once you open that door and you open yourself up to the fact that it is possible to achieve that, whether you want to believe it or not, it is possible. That's where I would come in and help you kind of think a little bit differently about the way you're doing things, and help you figure out a better way to look at your situation and improve everything around you. So that's what the coaching thing is all about. I do offer workshops, webinars. I'll custom build any kind of a program for you or your team. So this is for individuals on a personal level, and also for actual working teams and companies, and all that kind of stuff. So I know we can't get together in person much these days because of COVID, but don't let that stop you, because I'm set up to do virtual everything. So we can do a large conference talk. I can do a keynote speech, or I can have small workshops with select members of your team to talk through things. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can get in touch with me. Either email me directly at michaelm@bebettercp.com, or you can go to the website, bebettercp.com, and kind of browse through the services, send me a message through the website, and I'll get back to you. So that's all I have. Thank you again for checking out season one. I hope you'll all be back for season two. I plan on coming back strong and great new guests with new inspiration. So thanks again. Happy holidays to everybody. Stay safe and enjoy. And thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate it. This is season one finale, episode 10, Kitchen Brain Podcast. Chef Bryan Skelding. Let's go. Kitchen Brain. Kitchen Brain. Kitchen Brain. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Kitchen Brain Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Matarazzo, and today's episode, we're talking to Chef Bryan Skelding. Chef Bryan Skelding is the executive chef of the renowned Greenbrier Resort in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. Those of you that know me, know that I am a past Greenbrier Apprenticeship graduate, and the Greenbrier is very close to my heart. Cool thing about my relationship with Bryan is that he had the position of saucier when I started at the Greenbrier. And the rest of the story will come to light during this podcast. But incredible talent, incredible leader, and you'll see an incredible kind of resume and pathway through the industry. It's one of the more quality peppered pathways that you could see in the industry. It's pretty cool. So Chef, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I appreciate you asking me to do this. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah,
It's been a little while. We're both real busy. We're only 2 hours away from each other, but our working lives take over, and we don't get to talk enough. So this is also a good way for us to catch up a little bit.
absolutely.
So I just kind of want to give everybody a better picture and a better introduction to Bryan Skelding. And because I've always been really inspired by your path, and I think it's a great kind of journey through the industry from when you started out. You're Wisconsin guy, right?
That's correct. Yep,
So
Janesville, Wisconsin.
serious cheese man there.
Still to this day.
Is cheddar supposed to be yellow or not?
In Wisconsin, it must be.
It must be. Okay. I don't,
Yeah,
I remember you
yeah.
used to be very adamant about the color and whether it should or shouldn't be. I just don't remember which way it was supposed to go.
Do you remember the sign that I had down at Sam Sneed's that said, "No white pepper, no white cheddar"?
You know what? Now I do. Now I
Yeah,
do. Yeah.
yeah. I'm pretty
Got
serious about it. Yeah.
it. So if you could just kind of walk us through, because I know, going back to Henke's, and if there's obviously there's some stuff before that, and I'm not even really too familiar with what happened before there, but I'm really interested in kind of hearing the path that you took and the new chapters as you went along in the industry.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. So, I originally went to school for accounting in Whitewater, Wisconsin, and I was going to school, and I've always been into cooking and really enjoyed, being in the kitchen with my family, my grandmother, my mother, and it just didn't really do it for me. And honestly, it's one of those things that sounds kind of strange, but it was really an epiphany, and I decided to go to culinary school. I said, why not? And I'd worked at Dairy Queen for 5.5 years, and restaurant if you would. But once I decided to go to culinary school, I wanted to work in a supper club. It was kind of the high end food in Janesville, Wisconsin. It was called the Hoffman House, and it was prime rib, Friday night fish fry. Started out on the salad bar. Had to do cut everything for the salad bar, and I'd own that salad bar if you would, and make sure my hot bacon dressing was always warm and super flavorful, and things like that. So I worked there for a couple of years while I was going to culinary school, and worked also at a Chenala Supper Club in Wisconsin, up in the Dells area. Again, all while I was going to school. And I just had this bug in me to really travel. And I decided to go to Honolulu, Hawaii. And I guess the reason I did was I wanted to just kind of break away and get away from everything I had known. And so I bought a one-way ticket, and I'd saved a couple $1,000, and I put on a suit and put everything in my backpack, and I tried to get a job. I couldn't find anything. No one returned my calls. This was pre, everything we're doing right now. I'd sent out resumes via snail mail and things like that, and didn't really get any responses. So I said, you know what, to heck with it. I'm going to go out there and check it out. And looked around, and I wanted to work at either the Royal Hawaiian Hotel or the Mandarin Oriental, which is right on the other side of Diamond Head. So I went out there and got myself a little hotel room and a little studio apartment, and put on my only suit again, and walked into the Royal Hawaiian Hotel and asked if I could speak to the executive chef. His name was Tom Wong. I did my research, and they called him. I was right in the front desk in the middle of the Pink Palace, it was. And he said, yeah, come on back. And he actually made me wait outside his office for an hour. And I just stood there like one of those soldiers over, in Europe, just waiting for my chance, to get a job here. And, after an hour, he said, come on in. And we talked a little bit. And I told him what I was doing here and my story. And he hired me on essentially as part-time. So I had to call in every day by 9 a.m. and see what my schedule was. I wasn't officially on the schedule. Pretty nerve-wracking, because I wasn't essentially a full-time employee.
Right.
Um, but I ended up working with them for a couple of months and ended up getting a full-time position. And in the meantime, kind of developed a relationship with him and found out that he worked at the Greenbrier Hotel, and he was a past apprenticeship, past apprentice graduate. And I seen that plate inside of his office that everyone wants with the spring house on it, and
Yeah.
everyone signs and stuff.
Right.
And I'd asked him one day, I said, what's that all about? He said, you've never heard of the Greenbrier Hotel? And he says, in West Virginia. And I said, West Virginia? I was like, really? And so he told me the whole story about it. And long story short, he ended up, really talked with him a lot, helped him out with a lot of special events, flew over the Big Island with him twice and did some different dine arounds at some of the hotels over there. And he was getting married at the time. He was engaged. And he said, you need to meet a gentleman, chef I worked for at the Greenbrier at the time. His name was Hartmut Henke. And he said, I refer to him as Hard Nuts Henke because he's just that type of guy. He said, greatest cook I ever met my whole life. And he said, you need to be a great cook before you're anything. So essentially Chef Henke came over, he introduced me to him. We talked a little bit and ended up, offering me a job. And after Hawaii, I went and moved over to Columbus, Ohio, worked with Chef Henke for about 2 years, and unbelievable time of my life for sure. Really pushed the fundamentals. Really, it was such a great restaurant in the brewery district of Columbus, Ohio. And, some of the best times of my life were at that restaurant. And my goal was always after that, then to go to the Greenbrier. And I wasn't always sure if I wanted to do the apprenticeship program. I went back and forth numerous times. I worked with Ken Hess and Tim Loveland. Back in those days, the apprentices would leave for the winter, go maybe externship at a place because the hotel was crazy slow, 40 people in at a night.
Yeah. Right.
And so I met with those guys, and we ended up working together for almost 2 years. And I decided to go to the Greenbrier after that for essentially one season. And I just wanted to work in the tavern room. Didn't know who the chef was there at the time. At the time it was Chef Hagley, I had heard. And I went down and interviewed with Chef Mengel. He was the executive sous chef at the time. And he ended up bringing me on board, and I moved down and ended up meeting Chef Rosendale for the first time. And after, probably 2 weeks, he said, hey, you should probably be the lead chef here. I said, I don't know what a lead chef is. He's like, well, you kind of be, just underneath me essentially. So ended up taking that position and worked with him. Phenomenal experience in the tavern room. Doesn't exist anymore at the Greenbrier. It's actually right now where like JJ's is. It's right underneath Prime 44 restaurant. And so worked there for a season. And then Chef Timmons, I remember he came down one day. It was October, and forgive me if I'm getting a little long-winded here.
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah, okay. So he came down, and I was planning on moving out to Los Angeles because back in those days, I wanted to be a sushi chef. I thought that was like, I'm still obsessed to this day with chef knives and sushi and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And he came down one day and he said, hey, Bryan, he's like, I really could use an extra hand to get through the holidays. And back in those days, it was, Chef Timmons came by, and if he asked you something, you said, yes, chef. He said, would you mind sticking around till, maybe January? Yes, chef. Nope, not a problem. So I ended up sticking around, get through all the holidays. I went back to the main kitchen. I helped out up there, worked sauce station. I worked my first essentially sauce station rotation the night of graduation that year.
That's a
Rob
good
Plesh,
night.
yeah, right. It was graduation night, and Rob Plesh came to me that night, and I hadn't worked sauce station yet because I'd worked in the tavern room the whole time.
Right.
He said, Chefy, I'm going to go ahead and need someone to make sauces tomorrow. Do you think you could do that? I'm thinking to myself, well, let's see. Um, Probably won't have slept in 37 hours straight because I've been here. But yeah, why not sign me up? He's like, tell you what, I'll give you Dan Nakamura. He's a culinarian from Hawaii. He's an apprentice. He's like, I'll give you him to help you out. I said, that sounds fantastic. So I ended up leaving for about 30 minutes, went to White Sulphur, showered, came back. And after I helped out Corbett, put up for that year and did Saw Station. Anyway, so I finished out that whole year, went out to Los Angeles, and Tom Wong, who I'd met in Hawaii, was one of my mentors. Still is obviously one of my greatest mentors to this day. I told him the whole story because before I left, Chef Timmons offered me the saucier position, and I turned it down. And he looked at he. We were talking over the phone, and he said, "You know what?" He said, "You're an idiot. You need to take that saucier position. You need to go back to the Greenbrier and take that position." He said, hang up the phone right now, call Chef Timmons, tell him you take the position. And I did exactly that. And Chef Timmons was happy to hear from me. He said, let's bring you back here in April. And I ended up, again, such a great experience. Chef Timmons had told me, he said, Bryan, if you can do the saucier position, I promise you can do any position that ever comes across your way. That's like how difficult it was.
That's the truth.
Yeah. So I ended up going back that year, and I was saucier for just under 2 years. The first 3 months were, I'd say, the equivalent of the hardest times of my life is the same 3 months of trying to work with Chef Hanky in Columbus, Ohio. Sitting outside, waiting to get inside the restaurant, smoking cigarettes. Waiting to like just get in there and just run because they forced you to. You had so much prep to do in such a short amount of time, but it wasn't like, yeah, come in early. That's no problem. No, they had payroll to make.
Right.
So you had to come in at, 2 or 2:30.
And that's
Um,
that had to be what? That was probably was that '02
it
in that
was, yeah,
ballpark?
yeah. Yeah, that
Because
was '02. Yeah.
I started down there in the apprenticeship in '03.
Hmm.
And I thought I remembered you being there for about a year or so before I got there. And it's funny to hear you say, running all over the place. I mean, anybody who hasn't been to the Greenbrier, I mean, the main kitchen. What's the square footage? Do you know the square footage of the main kitchen?
I don't. I
It's
don't.
I usually tell people how many of my kitchens at work can fit inside the Greenbrier
Yeah.
kitchen. That's
Yeah.
usually how I measure it out, but it is it's absolutely enormous. And everybody always thinks that we're exaggerating when we talk about the Greenbrier and the kitchen, and then when they go there, they're like, "Whoa, you weren't kidding." But I joke a lot, and it's true though. Whenever I talk about Bryan Skelding to anybody, I refer to him as the guy who taught me how to walk. And that's not really a metaphor. It's kind of a literal statement because I'll never forget. I didn't have a uniform yet, or a hat, or some part of my uniform. So I needed to find out where the uniform room was. And I get into the kitchen, and there's Bryan on the station. And he's a tall guy. He's got long legs. So he's already got a good stride on me. I'm 5'7". And I see him, hey chef, how you doing? I'm here. I'm supposed to work here. And he's like, all right, let's show you where the uniform room is. And I mean, I didn't even I turned for a second. I looked back, and he's halfway across the kitchen, and I was like, "Whoa! I guess we're going that way." And then you come to find out real quick that that's just there's so much ground to cover there, and
Yeah.
so much to do that there's no other way to walk. I mean, you definitely see a distinct style of walking from past Greenbrier chefs.
I tell
And
people if they can't keep up with, if they're here to do a stage or a job interview, if they can't keep up with me from when I pick them up at the guard check to the uniform room, probably not getting the job because you got to have a sense of urgency. You do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've heard you say that before. And to this day, when I interview people and I take them on a tour, I make sure to walk at a brisk pace that I would expect our staff to. And I'm doing that to see, like, where are they? If they're
Right.
still around the
Yep.
corner, like,
Yeah. Right.
that might be a sign of passion or excitement. But yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I just
No, no, it's
when
fine.
you brought up the running around thing, I I always remember that day where I learned what kind of pace I needed to be at in order to keep up
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Um, so you that was my first year was 2003, and this is where I think it gets really interesting. For you, I mean, you were saucier until I graduated.
Yeah.
Um, that was '05, and then take it from there, because that's when things started to move a bit.
Yeah, so '05 was a big year for me. I loved being saucier. I literally loved it, and it's one of the best jobs I've ever had. And Rob Plesh came to me multiple times, and he said, "Hey, I want you to be a sous chef. I want you to talk to Chef Timmons about it." And I said, I said, "I'm not ready. I don't want to do that. I don't want to get into the black pants." And one day, again, as I said earlier, like tavern room style, Chef Timmons came down. He said, "Hey, why don't you swing up to the office real quick?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely, chef, no problem." And he brought me upstairs and he closed the door and he said, "I'm going to post a position. I'm going to post a sous chef position. I'd like you to bid on it." Okay, yes, chef. That's no problem. You know, and again, totally didn't want to, but hey, if that's what he thought was best for the team and for what needed to be done, then yeah, absolutely. So I went ahead and bid on it, and he gave me the job. Had to do an interview and things like that. And I spent the first 6 months in the main kitchen with the one and only Rob Plesh. Awesome experience. Him and I are running banquets in the main kitchen, and getting crushed on the scoreboard, and um, trying to run everything by herself. So he taught me a whole heck of a lot. And as we kind of finished through that season, the summer I actually had opened up the pool. Jim Waltman was there, and it was right when we did a complete renovation of the outdoor pool. So that was really my first gig. Is I had to do that and then the main kitchen. Anyways, towards the end of the summer, then is Jim Waltman, Chef Timmons asked me to start covering his days off, and then so I started doing that down at Sam Sneed's, and then come wintertime, Chef Altman took some time off. I think he ended up going back up to Hershey Hotel, and Chef Timmons came to me in early spring, and he said, "You have 2 weeks to get me a menu. You're going to be running the Sam Sneed's restaurant." And I said, "Oh my gosh!" And that was crazy stressful. I was like, 2 weeks. So I talked to Alex Iliadis, who had run it, 3 years prior, and yeah, so I was super grateful that he gave me that opportunity to run the golf club that year, which was ended up being, what was it, '05, and then he gave it to me again the next year, which is where you and I had worked together extensively. But when you got promoted to sous chef and came down to Sam Sneed's, and we crushed it in '06 that whole year,
Yeah,
and
man.
that was awesome. It was such
That
a good
was
year.
awesome. That
Yeah,
I so I always say, if people ask me what my favorite kitchen was, when I was working the line, that year and that kitchen is still to this day. It blows everything else away. It was such a cool thing, and one thing that everybody needs to know, about Bryan Skelding, and I'm gonna blow a lot of smoke your way, but this is the truth. Um, the best thing for me about being around you, and working for you at Sam Sneed's, and I still believe this. I still have yet to encounter somebody who gives off this same vibe. When because you would often, you took pride in prepping specials for the restaurant. You were never too busy to be in the kitchen with us when we were prepping, and when you were touching food, uh, the amount of passion, the way that you express your love for food when you're in a kitchen is so contagious. Like, it's like, no, like, I remember stopping numerous times. I can remember stopping and thinking, like, man, this guy just loves it. Like, this, and then you get excited. Like, it's
yeah,
impossible to not be excited about food when this guy is in the room, touching it near you and talking about it and teaching you something about the spice he's using. I mean, I love food. I love to cook. It's my life. but the level of just love for the craft, it like exudes from you when you're in the kitchen. And that was, that was one of the best things for me, was being around that, and kind of feeling that positivity and that passion. I'll never forget that. That was awesome.
I
So
appreciate that. That was a great year, and we had the Scott brothers, and
that's
shucking
right.
oysters, and I mean, we got clobbered down there at Sam Sneed's that
We did,
summer,
man.
and you were such a great sous chef to work with too, because the recipes that you would bring in. I remember doing like hollandaise sauce and gnocchis, and you and I would talk about how do we teach all these young guys what we've taught, and I still honestly use, when we do orientation to this day, I still use a document that you created, and I still give you credit, is how to be a successful line cook.
Oh,
Remember when you
thanks,
put that
man.
together?
I do. I still give it out. I
Yeah,
still
I
give
mean,
it out. Yeah.
it's such great detail, scrubbing down your station, sense of urgency, how you walk, how you set up your station, breaking down as quickly as you are setting up. So, yeah, a lot. I think both of us learned a lot that year. We are both
Yeah.
very young in our careers.
Yeah. It was a great time, man.
Yeah.
Great time. So keep going, man, because it just gets more. It just gets cooler and cooler as you go along. I,
Well,
I
I
I
appreciate that.
left I left in '07. I think it was January '07. I left and went up to New York. And then I'm not sure. I know where you went. I just don't know when
Yeah.
you went.
So I left right in January of '07 too. I
Okay.
finished out that '06 season. I think January 16th was my last day. And, in August, I had actually met with Chef Rosendale, and I'd gone up to Columbus, and he said, hey, you know, I ended up getting the spot. It was an old used car lot right downtown, the short north of Columbus, Ohio. And I went up there and talked about an opportunity where he got some investors and was going to open up a restaurant, and I'd just gotten married at the time that year, and I'd worked with Chef Rosendale for numerous years, and I was like, you know what? As much as I didn't want to leave the Greenbrier, it was just an opportunity I couldn't pass up. So I let Chef Timmons know, that end of August, that I'd be leaving in January. Gave him a good couple months heads up, for the following season, because as you know, the Greenbrier, it's a little quiet January, February, March. So yeah, so we opened up Rosendale's. It was March 17th of 2007, St. Patty's Day, and it was a bloodbath like any other. But we loved every minute of it. We had Ben Groupie come down and stage with us for a week. We had John Ferguson come down and stage with us
Yeah.
for a week. Drew Garms was there. Drew
Yeah.
Garms was sous chef. Eddie Tancredi was sous chef. Um,
Who was your garde manger guy, or the pastry guy? What was his name? He was the
That was
Nighthawk at
Baco,
the
man.
Greenbrier.
That was
Yeah, Alex
Baco.
Bacco.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He was phenomenal. I remember
Yeah.
he told it was like opening night, and Chef Timmons came back in the kitchen like with Rod Stoner, and Baco. He'd never done any pastries before, and he was our like pastry chef. And he told Chef Timmons, he's like, I just learned how to make simple syrup last week.
You know what though? That is a true testament
uh,
to Rosendale's organization, particularly with recipes.
yeah,
His
yeah,
recipes have always been like, you could hand them to I could hand them to one of my kids,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they would probably be able to get it right. I mean, he is so detailed, and I mean, when you started to see photos of the plates that Baco was putting out, it was like,
Phenomenal. Yeah,
man, I
absolutely
mean, this
phenomenal.
guy, it's crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, that was pretty awesome. So, we did that for 2.5 years. We were there down in Columbus, and I remember Rosendale sent me out to the French Laundry to stage for 8 days, and that was in early September
Oh,
of
nice.
2008. Because that was our goal. We wanted to really be, the next upcoming restaurant in the United States, destination restaurant. And I tell you what, I got back that week, and the recession hit us hard. I mean, it was like a light switch. And you look outside, the short north in the Columbus area, and it was dead. I mean, there weren't people anywhere. And I've never experienced anything like that. So we went through that for, almost the next year. And it was, watching everything that we ordered, watching labor, trimming wherever everything that we could. It was a very difficult part of our careers, but it was one that really made us tough. I mean, I learned so much in that year, even though, it wasn't the greatest year of my life. But looking back, growing as a chef, it probably was one of the greatest years of my life because I really learned how to manage food cost, manage labor cost. How do you give the value to the guest when you only have so much money to spend? How do you start combining stations? How do you look at someone and say, you know, uh, I'm not going to need you today because honestly, as a chef, chef de cuisine of the restaurant, we weren't bringing in enough revenue, so,
Right.
and a lot of restaurants were going through that, just as how we're going through right now in 2020 with the coronavirus.
Sure.
Um, so I've learned, going through that has helped me a lot, going through the flood at the Greenbrier, coronavirus this year, and how to manage your costs, because at the end of the day, I mean, you got to be able to open up the next day. So anyways, so then, I remember one day Chef Rosenell got a call and he said, he said the Greenbrier just called me, and when you work at the Greenbrier, you always stay close,
Right.
Nancy
Yeah.
Graham might send you like an email, or,
Right.
you hear just different things. And said, yeah, we heard Jim Justice bought the property. We're like, oh my gosh, who is that? I was like, wow, it's a local guy in Lewisburg. And um, ended up buying the Greenbrier out from the Marriott. And they called Rich and said, hey, we'd like you to come down and check out to be the executive chef. He said, what do you think I should do? I said, can't hurt to go check it out. And
Yeah.
so he ended up going down, came back, and he said, man, he goes, unbelievable. He goes, this place, I mean, he goes, Bryan, it's going to change everything that we saw before we left. And he goes, but here's the thing, you got to come back as my executive sous. And I said, well, let me check with the old wifey and see what she thinks.
Right.
And, my wife and I met here on a blind date, and she said, let's do it. She goes, I'd love to move back there. So we ended up moving back in September of '09. And Eddie Tancredi ran the restaurant for a while in Columbus. And then Rich ended up selling the place. He found a great buyer and found a guy who had, found a company that would take care of it, so he could focus completely on the Greenbrier.
Right.
So we bought the place. We opened up numerous restaurants, a casino, and so I was the executive sous chef for 3.5 years, and while Rich was there, and amazing time. We did so much to the property. We redid, pulled out the cold meats, the old showcase that you would see up there.
Yep.
Rearranged the main kitchen, opened up 3 new restaurants, because the goal was at the Greenbrier to have just more of a variety for the guests. So, within that time, again, learned a lot. Rich was doing the Bocuse at the time. And then, Rich came to me one day and he said, you know what? He said, it's time for me to move on. He said, I got some other things that I want to do. And he said, I think I'm going to go to Mr. Kimmick. And he's the president at the time. And he goes, I think I'm going to put in my notice. And he did. He put it in very gracefully. And that very same day, after Mr. Kimmick sent Kathy Miller to me and said, Rich has put in his resignation, and we feel that you would be the next guy. We really want you to do the next job, be the executive chef. And I said, I'd be honored to do that. And that was 7.5 years ago. It's crazy how
That's
fast time
awesome.
goes by. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That is
So,
so cool, man.
yeah.
Um, Very cool. So yeah, I mean, it all kind of came full circle. I mean,
Right.
literally. Um, so you took over, you took the helm at a place that obviously you were very familiar with, which is great. But a ton of history, a ton of tradition at the Greenbrier, and it makes sense that somebody with your connection to it and tenure would become the executive chef there, and it's incredible to see that. So you've seen a lot through the years. From I mean, if you look back to when you were in the tavern room as the lead chef, and then you look now, I mean, you could talk about people, you could talk about chefs and cooks, you could talk about the facility itself and the growth of the property. How many restaurants, or actually, I should say, how many kitchens are at the Greenbrier today?
14 kitchens.
14 kitchens, and
Yeah.
non-pandemic year, full staff, white coats. What are we talking?
200.
Whew, that's wild. I mean, there's we were a far cry from 200 when I was there, but then again, we didn't have that many kitchens.
Is about half. Yeah.
It was about half, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's an incredible facility. With a lot to keep track of. My thing is, this apprenticeship program, and I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit about that for anybody listening, because that's for me that's the gold heart of the
Yeah.
Greenbrier kitchen. Um, can you just kind of give an overview of the Greenbrier apprenticeship program? And then I kind of want to talk about how it's evolved a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So the program started in 1957 by Herman Roosh, and the main goal of that program was to um, really train local culinarians, local folks, if you would, because there weren't a lot of culinary schools back then. And originally it was a 2-year program, and you graduate, every other year or so. And to this day, we are now a 3-year program. We started years ago as a 3-year program. But essentially, the goal is to create a culinarian that has worked in every aspect of the kitchen, can essentially run a sous chef position, uh, everything from charcuterie, butchery, pastry skills, catering, banquets, any kind of restaurant concept that you think of. My goal always is very simple, is that a Greenbrier culinarian should be able to, I don't really want them to leave, of course, but if they shall leave, to be able to go into any other kitchen in the United States or anywhere in the world and, you know, not speak about their experiences, but put their experiences on a plate, put their experiences on the way that they work in a kitchen, how they organize themselves, how clean that they work, how precise that they work, um, and let the food do the talking. So, and I could talk for hours about the program, but,
Sure.
in a nutshell, it's really about just creating someone who is so well built in fundamentals, from making consommes to, cooking a burger properly, to making a chicken liver terrine, to, you know, everything, pate and croûtes. I mean, you name it, to know
Sure.
all that stuff in 3 years.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that I've spoken a lot about on and off on this podcast and social media is sort of the evolution and the necessity for evolution in every industry, right? Not just
Mhm.
ours, but definitely in our industry. And I think that there are some natural or historic obstacles that we run into sometimes when we think about evolving certain aspects. But um, the apprenticeship program looks a little bit different today than it did when I was there. And when I was there, it was very heavily geared toward kind of the culinary competition world, um, and very focused on cold food platters and glazing and that kind of stuff. There's certainly a fair amount of hot food aspect to it, um, but it is a lot different now. And I've always admired the evolution that you've kind of put the program through since you started there. What I want to, it's called kitchen brain, right? So I just
Mhm.
kind of want to jump in your brain and um, tell me about at what point and I'm sure it was a gradual thing, but at what point did you really start to say, um, this could be more relevant, or this could be um, something that is more beneficial if we move some things around, and what kind of changes have you made as a result?
Um, so it honestly probably started as soon as I honestly started working there, because I helped a lot of the graduates with their show work every night. Chris Long, Corbett Rook, Mike Trainer. I mean, I was in there till 4 a.m., numerous nights of the week doing the show work. And I loved it, absolutely loved it. I love the detail of it. But at the same time, I always ask myself, why can't we taste this food? Why can we not taste this food? But again, it goes back to, like I said earlier, the yes chef mentality. And, this is what it is. It's historically been that way. And that was actually the hardest thing I had to overcome to evolve the apprenticeship program. Was I didn't want to tarnish it. I didn't want to screw it up. I didn't want it to go away, because that was on me, as a chef of the resort. And so it was I wanted to do it right away when I first took over in 2013, but honestly, I was a little bit scared to. And again, it goes back to I didn't want to screw it up. And there was one graduation night, the night where we stay over 24 hours, everyone's glazing and things like that. And I saw a young culinarian do a technique that I totally did not agree with. And it was something that he just did just to get it done and make sure that it was perfect. And it didn't matter that it was not edible. And I said to myself, this is it. I mean, as of this moment, and I'm totally honest here, it was that very moment where I said, next year is going to be different. It has to be different. We have to be able to build recipes in our repertoire that we can utilize in our industry. When we leave the Greenbrier, we need to be able to say, hey, I can make a killer chicken liver terrine. I can make a great Cumberland sauce. I can make, a great pot au feu. All these different, classic techniques that we were always taught, but they got to be edible. And so I started working with Chef McFadden. He was my first CMC judge the following year. And I brought him in, Chef Hankey, and maybe it was Coconauer that year. And I kind of explained to Chef McFadden what my goal was. And he said, you know what? He said, that's awesome. He said, you need to go with that. Let's do that. So for 3 years in a row, he was a judge. And each year we talked a little bit about more and more, and, just kind of kept refining everything. And I pulled the trigger, was it 4 years ago, with Chef Niall Walker. And he was the only senior that year. And I remember going to him that year and said, you know what, we're changing everything. And he's like, what? What do you mean you're changing everything? So just hear me out. And he thought it was great. We changed throughout the year. We changed how the graduation is going to be set up. We changed how long you had. We changed the kitchens. And it's still evolving. It will always evolve. But at the end of the day, it had to come down to the taste of the food, because at the end of the day, you got to be able to put up super tasty food for your guests.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I love where the program has gone. And seeing all the photos that you post, and for anybody who's on Instagram, if you follow at Bryan Skelding on Instagram, and it's Bryan with a Y, so Bryan.
Yep.
Skelding is the Instagram handle, and just constantly, being updated with posts and promoting the apprenticeship program, promoting the apprentices, and really showcasing their talents and what they're learning in the program. It's pretty incredible to see. So I definitely encourage everybody to look at that. I'm just curious, and you don't have to get into details.
Mhm.
Have you, it is a long standing program. I mean, it's been around, like you said, um, since Herman Roosh was there. Have you encountered any criticism about any of the changes that you've made to the program?
Surprisingly not. Every judge that has come in over since those 4 years, Chef Teese, Chef Kevin Walker, Kyle Krieger, McFadden, everyone has actually surprisingly been very happy with it and applauded me for taking the risk to change the program. And I tell you what, it was sleepless nights trying to make that decision, because
I bet.
again, there's such the legacy there, and I
Yeah.
did not want to screw it up. So, but no, fortunately I have not. But there's also been little tweaks, and it may be with the apprentices and talking about, all right, I remember now the first mock graduation that we did, I think I set aside like 12 hours, and to this day, it's, really 9 hours. And we just had so much time. He's like, Chef, I got too much time. I was like, really? You got too much time? He's like, yeah, I do. We got to cut this down. So, I think that's an important lesson for any culinarian out there, is to always be open-minded to those that you work with. Even though my title essentially is executive chef, I think it's important to always take feedback from everyone around you, because the answer is usually in the room. That whatever needs to be fixed, someone has that answer in their back pocket. So you just got to be open-minded and be willing to look at it.
Yeah. Well, you're like the 21st century Herman Roosh, really. I mean,
I
when you
don't know
think
about
about
that.
it, I mean,
That's
it's a pretty cool legacy to have there. Not just being the executive chef of the Greenbrier, but being someone who, was the change, and a change that was needed. And I'm not really completely surprised that there wasn't criticism, and that's just based on the quality that I see coming out of there. So yeah, I think it's awesome, and I would I would thank you for preserving the apprenticeship. Just as a past apprentice.
Yeah, I
um,
appreciate that.
I think that I would say that everybody, at least everybody I've spoken to, certainly appreciates what you've done to improve it, keep it alive, all that kind of stuff. So um, that's cool stuff.
Well, know
So
this, I will continue to fight to keep the apprenticeship program going and going and going as long as I possibly can. So we already have I'm sorry, 6 sophomores already for next year, 3 savory, 3 pastry. So we're looking great. So
nice. Where does
yeah.
somebody go to apply for that? What's the avenues they should take?
Best thing to do is I mean, there's a small part, if you go on greenbrier.com, there's a small web page underneath, essentially the whole culinary history and everything gives a little bit of a breakdown about the apprenticeship program. My email's on there. There's a stage form on there, some information about what we're looking for. And then it all comes to me. And then, we start talking over the phone, um, looking at resumes, getting some letters of reference. I have a young man coming up tomorrow from Orlando, and he's going to stage for the whole day, and he's looking at doing the program in 2021 as well. So it's important to go through that. Come check us out. Um, and again, that's why you mentioned earlier about my Instagram. I post on my Instagram to kind of just show the culture of the Greenbrier and the kitchens and what we're trying to
Yeah,
accomplish every day. Yeah.
yeah. That's cool. Um, Awesome. So greenbrier.com to learn more about the resort and the apprenticeship program. And there are some steps on there that you can take if you're interested in applying. I obviously I highly recommend it for anybody looking for some solid training and direction. Um, so when we talk about evolution, leadership is also kind of a thing that we get into on this show quite a bit, and different styles of leadership. And that's, that's another thing that has evolved. So kind of this is kind of a two-part thought here to throw at you. You kind of specialize in a way, just the way an educator does, because of the apprenticeship program. You recruit and hire and teach and mentor young culinarians, or culinarians. I don't have to use the word. I mean, young in the industry, um, through the kind of the earlier stages of their career, and help them, move forward. So over the years, you have seen multiple generations of apprentices, and kind of every year's new generation. Um, and there's, I kind of get into a little back and forth with people about, there's a lot of dialogue out there about, this new generation. Um, and that's where I kind of I have a little bit of a an opinion of it on my own, as far as, you know every generation. When you say new generation, I mean, by definition, it's different than it was before. So I think we need to expect that there's going to be a different mindset and a different type of personality and work ethic, and I
Yep.
believe
Yep.
that that's shaped by society at the time. The time you come into the world, society's around you. That's going to shape each generation. Um, when you think about your leadership style, and again, this might be two separate answers for you, but when you think about your leadership style, back when you were just becoming, more of a supervisory chef with lead chef and sous chef positions, and then compared to now, um, and then even the generations of cooks, like how do you view every new generation? Are you treating the people who are coming in today as young culinarians the same way as you might have treated them, or dealt with them, back in the day?
That's Those some pretty good questions there. I guess I'll start off with Probably, has my management style changed? It absolutely has. And it's something that I work on every single day. And I think as a young manager, um, I didn't always understand that I needed to get people to want to work for me. It's just like, I was in this yes chef, environment, and it's just like, hey, this is it. It needs to be done this way. Do it. Don't ask questions. Um, and I guess mentally, I didn't always really think about it a whole lot. I just did it. And I guess as I kind of started working up through the ranks, is I really want to developing relationships was very important for me. And part of it was my personality. Part of it is I want to have a nice culture in the kitchen. And nice, I don't mean as like we're all just hunky dory and hey, how are you doing and things like that. But it's the fact that we all enjoy coming into work together every day, and we enjoy working with each other, and we enjoy our passions, and we enjoy our work ethics together. And we're okay, if someone is, needs some help over there, and we jump over there and ask, we jump in and help them out. So I think my management style has matured a little bit. Is I've really tried to, I guess, train people to be better people, not only just better cooks, but just better people. Maybe part of that is becoming a parent, 12 years ago, and raising two young daughters with my wife, Sarah. Is, life isn't all about just one thing. It's about, like how you mentioned earlier, it's about balance.
Sure.
So for me, management style is about balance, and I really try to understand more about people's personal lives and giving them the time off that they request. I try to invigorate people and bring things in, maybe more so than I did when I was younger, and bringing things in, and the apprenticeship has helped me a lot with that. And it's helped me learn. It seems like the more I put into the apprenticeship, the better results I get. And that's across the board. That's not just with the apprentices, because the apprentices at the Greenbrier, they're just like the stewarding team. They're the backbone of the culinary team. They're the backbone of the food and beverage team. So when their energy level is positive, when they're working on all cylinders, when they have rest, when they enjoy coming in every day, I've found throughout the years that I see a better food product. I see a better morale in the kitchens. I see people just enjoying life. And that's important to me. It really, really is. I enjoy my day off just as much as the next guy. But I'm also super passionate about what I do. And again, going back to raising my daughters, I don't care what they do with their lives. I just want them to be passionate about it. And I want them to enjoy what they're doing and not call it work. And, for me, I go into the Greenbrier every day. I don't go to work every day. I just go to the Greenbrier every day, and I enjoy my time in the kitchen. So I hope that answers the first part of your question.
Yeah, no, I think that was great.
Okay. And then remind me again what the second part of the question was again.
So just well, I mean, you kind of hit you kind of hit both, but just speaking more specifically about the generations of cooks that you've
Yeah, yeah.
observed.
So the generation of cooks, I agree with you. A couple of years ago, I read an article, and I think about this often, and I give it to every chef de cuisine that starts, and it's from the Harvard Law University, and it talks about the 6 different management styles, because I manage people from 6 different generations of people who grew up in, whether there was a war or there wasn't, was there a depression or was there a recession, all that stuff. Like you said, we're all come from our environments. We're all come from the time that we were raised in. And it's important as a leader to understand how to get people to want to work for you. And you can't just have the same mindset with everyone. You need to develop relationships differently. Some people, some team members or generations, however you want to label it, maybe need a little bit more time spent with them, maybe need to talk to them differently, or maybe not. Maybe it's someone who just likes to be left alone. But not only the generational gap, but I think you also need to look at people as individuals and really try to get to know them a little bit. It's very important to me to be able to call everyone by their first name, because I think it creates an identity and an individual. And with 200 people, it's super tough. It's super tough. And that's just culinarians. And in this era with the masks, it's been even more difficult, because face
Sure.
recognition for me is a way to, really essentially for me to kind of remember and to bond with people. So, as relates to generational gap, I think everyone has their pluses and minuses. I don't think that there's any better generation, or, are we dealing with, the young generation, maybe with a weird work ethic? Maybe us as leaders need to do a better job and figure out different ways to motivate them. And again,
Absolutely.
some of it comes down to just what I have to deal with my own daughters, is how do you motivate them to do what they want to do?
Right.
And I bring both of those things. I bring home into work, and I bring work into home to help myself always try to be a better dad, a better husband, and a better chef every single day.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm 100% on board with what you said. I don't remember what it was that I posted on, excuse me, on Instagram. I think it was Instagram. I think it was my video, the why I don't like chefs video, when I was kind of driving around Charlottesville and
Yeah, I
going on
saw that. Yeah.
my little rant. But I got one big comment on YouTube for that, and this guy basically his first line was like, "Yeah, that's pretty much BS." And then he continued, and one of the things he mentioned, and I hear it a lot, is just one of the little things. These new kids coming into our kitchens now, they can't keep their eyes off their cell phones, and they don't have their priorities in check. And my thought is, like, if you can't get your staff to get their eyes off their cell phones, there's something more interesting happening on their cell phones than what you are providing them with. I
Yeah.
mean, that there's a point at which you have to kind of say, like, what kind of atmosphere, what kind of education, what kind of motivation and excitement are you bringing to the table? If that's the case, and don't get me wrong, I mean, there are people who, occasionally come into your kitchen that you hire, and some of them they just don't work. They just don't fit, or for whatever reason, and that happens. But just to generalize the entire population of this new workforce coming in as bad, or that something's wrong with them, I can't go along with that. I can't get on board there.
I totally agree. And as leaders in our kitchens, that's up to us to figure that out and how to motivate people. Because I'm honestly, I'm sure my dad, my grandfather, my great grandfather probably said the exact same thing about every young generation
Yeah.
that they ran into wherever they worked at. I've heard it. It's just an old story.
Yeah, for sure. um well, cool, man. The one thing, in our industry, people talk about addiction, and you have a problem with collecting knives.
What?
You have a lot of knives, chef. This is a passion of yours, and I remember you taught me better than anybody. I mean, I learned before I met you, but I still didn't really get it, how to sharpen a knife. And you broke down, like, the metal. You gave me a sandpaper analogy, and the different degrees of sandpaper and what they do to wood, and it related it to what a stone does to a knife, and the grit and all that kind of stuff. Um, you have a look on your face like that wasn't you. That was you, wasn't it?
I just think it's no. I'm just that's my voice of passion because I am super. I always love talking about knives. So I was like, okay, cool. If you're going to talk about that, I hope you're ready for the next 30 minutes because we can go 30 minutes on
Well,
knives, no
we're
problem.
gonna have to do a sequel, chef. But I just
Okay,
wanted to
all right,
point it out. Um, you have ridiculous knife collection. How are they all chef knives? I've always wanted to ask you that.
with the exception of a couple of pocket knives, yeah. I mean, I just have a couple of pocket knives, but yeah, they're all chef knives.
So you don't collect, like, combat knives or historical war knives or anything like that.
I do not know, just
Okay,
chef
I did.
knives. Yeah,
That
yeah,
has nothing to do with this show. I've just been
that's fine.
curious, and
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
and you never call, so I figured, I have to ask you while I have you.
Okay, all right.
I mean, people might want to know, though. What's your favorite?
I was wondering if you're going to ask me that tonight. So I do have two unicorns in my knife collection, and one of them, my first one, took me 10 years to find it, and it's a Hattori KD series, and it's a Damascus made by Hattori himself. I found one on eBay about 4 years ago. Um, so he's probably about 80 right now. And I was on a waiting list for 3 years to try to get one after he retired. No one ever reached out to me. I searched. So my Hattori KD series, Damascus Santoku, is definitely up there. And then the one I recently got this year from Ninox, because Ninox is probably my favorite company. I've had them. My first one was in '02 from Core, and I've been in love with them ever since.
I
And
remember that.
yeah, and I had the opportunity to have them make me a custom knife, and it was last September, and I paid a good bit of money up front, talked about the steel I wanted, and the handle I wanted, and all this COVID stuff happened. I didn't know if I would actually ever get the knife, and once you know it, I got an email out of the blue. I think it was in May, and said, "Hey, we just finished making your knife." I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's fantastic!" And they're like, "But here's the thing." Um, we're not allowed to ship anything out of Japan right now. So we're going to send it on a boat. We hope it makes it there, and it should be there in about 2 months. It's like, oh my gosh. So, anyways, it was a knife I posted probably, I think maybe in August. But both those steels are Kaori X steel, and Kaori X steel was made by the Daido company, and it doesn't exist anymore. And I've always been this guy. I always like to be different. I always like the rare stuff.
Yeah.
So that's why those two knives are super important to me. And honestly, I got that knife made because I didn't know if there was any more Kaori X steel on the planet. I
Right.
had heard that what's the guy who he owns a Spider knife company. He bought the last 65 blanks from Daido, and he had
Really?
the last remaining Kaori X steel on the planet. So I was surprised that actually Ninox had some blanks, and I believe I got the last one because I saw a post not too much longer after that that said that was they had another one of Kaori X, and it said the last one that they were able to make. So,
Wow.
but yeah, like I said, I could go on for a long time about knives, but I don't know. There's just something, when you hold that knife in your hand, and when it connects with the food and a sharp knife. I don't know. We all have our passions. As for me, that's definitely up there for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're just, I guess geez, I think we're just about at an hour now. I think we could probably talk for a while longer, but for those of you again who are on Instagram and want to take kind of a dive into a lot of the things that Bryan does at the Greenbrier and the apprentices do, it's at Bryan Skelding, Bryan with a Y, on Instagram, and then greenbrier.com. If anybody's interested in learning more about the apprenticeship program, you can find out there. You can find out how to apply. Bryan's email address is on there, and he's very very quick to respond. So I encourage anybody who's kind of looking for a direction or a next step. For me, the Greenbrier came after I graduated culinary school, so for me, it was I graduated culinary school, and I still didn't really feel like I knew enough. And I was fortunate to know a past Greenbrier apprentice, Russell Scott, that put his name on a piece of paper for me to go down there, and best thing I ever did. So anybody looking for a world class education, that's the place. It's still the place for me. It'll always be the place for me. Um, and you just got to meet the 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 man that's at the top. Obviously, he has a big team of talented people, and that help him make it happen. But he's the visionary. He's the brains behind the operation, and I'm super honored to have you on Kitchen Brain, Chef. Thanks for taking the time. Um, we're gonna get together soon when all this pandemic stuff blows over. We got to get the families together, and I still have something of yours that I have to give back to you anyway. So kind of just holding on to it to make sure we're still friends.
Yeah, hey,
Uh,
we'll always be friends. And nothing holds better than friendship is interest. So yeah, it's no problem.
awesome, awesome. Well, stay well, and thanks again for joining us here. And yeah, all the best to you and your family through the holidays, and keep doing what you're doing, man. Thanks again for everything you're doing to keep that program running, and keep doing what you're doing, man.
I appreciate it, Chef. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was an honor.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, you too. Thanks.
Kitchen Brain. Kitchen Brain. Kitchen Brain.